Welcome to A Date with Darkness podcast, where I will be discussing the impact of hurtful and abusive relationships and how to overcome them so that you can move through your pain and get to the kind of healthy relationships you want, need, and deserve. I'm Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed psychotherapist based in California. While I hope that you find this podcast educational and informational, please note it should not be substituted for treatment with a licensed mental health professional. Also, due to the nature of the podcast, some of the information presented on the show can be sensitive to some of my listeners, so please note that listener discretion is advised. Hello and welcome to the podcast. It's been a while since we last talked. I hope that you guys are doing okay, and I definitely want to jump right into things. Of course, as you know, A Date with Darkness Facebook group is open if you're looking to get some support and offer some support to people who are healing from abusive relationships. Individual coaching sessions are now open. I'm gonna I'm gonna post a link down below if you are interested in booking individual coaching sessions, and also the website will be posted up. We are still working on that, making sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's. I'm super excited about how that's going to look. Group membership will be coming very, very soon. We are working diligently to get that out. So that's the administrative stuff. And of course, if you like what you hear, please help support a small podcast by leaving a positive review, liking, sharing, and subscribing on your podcast player. That's the way you can show love and help other people find the podcast who are looking for support and need that. Okay, so last week, we had a talk with Laura, who is the relationship coach, about dysfunctional families and the roles within the dysfunctional families. So this week, I want to definitely kind of continue that conversation and expand on it a little bit. I want to talk about what it looks like when you are in a dysfunctional family or a toxic family or a narcissistic family, and you are also in your own relationship with a narcissist, and perhaps you are attempting to leave or end the relationship with a narcissist. How does your dysfunctional or toxic family react to that? And I definitely want to get into that because I think that this is something that happens quite frequently. And when you're in a relationship, an intimate partnership with a narcissist, or you have friends who happen to be narcissists, or you are in environments where you're surrounded by narcissists, in my experience in working with the people that I've worked with, and just in my own personal experience, that's usually something that happens as a result of family upbringing. You're usually your family upbringing, the attachment, and the patterns that you're used to in your family of origin usually set the stage for what you're going to encounter, in your intimate relationships or friendships, or work environments and things of that nature. And you have to do a lot of work to undo some of those habits that you form from your family of origin, some of those habits or behaviors or patterns that have become normalized or deeply rooted in your brain. It's like, oh, this is the way that I'm supposed to interact with people, or I'm supposed to be with people that are problematic and don't respect boundaries or are inherently cruel. And so your brain, if you've been exposed to that early on, your brain tends to normalize that, and it becomes wired for that. And that's why people always ask, oh gosh, I don't really understand why I continue to attract the same types of people over and over. And it's because, again, that wiring, we're hardwired for that. And that does become normalized after, an extended period of time, or after we have been exposed to that over and over and over again, even though on some level we understand that it's not healthy or that it's not the best for us logically. So this has nothing to do with logic. Logically, we understand that, hey, this is not the way that this is supposed to be. But it's like something in your neurochemistry is like, no, in the dopamine and the serotonin, and just the way that your brain becomes wired, even oxytocin, it's like you become wired to bond with people. And that's what trauma bonding and other elements of abuse are all about. Is and also, if you and this is a really simplified way of explaining it, but also if you've experienced grooming over and over again, or if you have what uh, a byproduct of grooming or gaslighting, which would be something very similar or akin to Stockholm syndrome, where you actually sympathize for your abuser and people that look like the abusive people in your life. So, a lot of times what tends to happen if we're in a relationship with narcissists, and we come from a narcissistic family, and we decide that, hey, I don't want that narcissist to be a part of my life anymore. I want to be done with this relationship. This relationship has become harmful. It's a detriment. My safety may be at risk. So there's a whole lot of reasons why you may choose to end it. This person is feeling parasitic. Those may be some of the reasons. And if that person that was in your life happens to have established a relationship with family members or friends in your life that are extremely toxic, what may tend to happen is your family members will start to try to bond with that person outside of you. And so what you may have is family members or friends that are secretly communicating with this narcissistic person behind your back, forming an allegiance, offering support, joining in the smear campaign against you, and sympathizing with the abuser's experience of whatever they may say about you, and sympathizing with them more so than they do with you. And so you may go to your family and say, hey, we've broken up, or this person is no longer in my life, and this is what it is, thinking that, or hoping that, I should say, that you're going to get support. But if you come from a family that's very dysfunctional, a family that is very narcissistic or toxic, you are not going to get the genuine support that you are hoping for. And I say genuine because what they may do is they may present themselves in a way that's, offering support. So their face may be sympathetic. They may be saying all the right words to offer you support. But you may find out later that they're actually going against you and aligning themselves more so with a narcissistic person in your life. And here's I'm going to give a couple reasons. I'm going to start out with some reasons about why they may tend to do that and what this means for you. And so whenever you have toxic, dysfunctional, or narcissistic family members, I think the first thing to say, that's the easiest thing to sort of pop out and recognize, be recognizable, is one, folks like that don't typically have healthy boundaries. They don't have boundaries. They're not respectful of boundaries. And so even if things may be hurtful to you, they're not going to respect that or understand things about loyalty, at least when it pertains to someone else. They may want you to be loyal to them, but they're not going to understand being loyal to someone else because they're thinking about what's in it for me, or what can I get from this, right? And so that's the first reason that I want to mention is that they don't have a respect for boundaries or they don't have a respect for you. And so this may mean, if they don't respect your boundaries, they automatically don't have a respect for you. But it may actually go beyond having a disrespect. It may be that they dislike you or they hate you, or they're thinking about ways that they could lash out towards you and get you back for some perceived injustice that they feel that you may have done to them. So they may have felt like in the past you've done them wrong, or they just really don't care for you for whatever the reasons are. And part of, another reason that I'll sort of loop into um, not caring for you, or having a strong dislike or hatred towards you. The other thing that I'll mention is that they could be envious of you. And someone who's envious of you, they covet what you have, and they want it. And they want it to the point where they would be willing to sabotage um, you or the relationship with you in order to get it. So they don't care about the consequences. If they really like the person, let's just say, they have an ulterior motive of being attracted to the person that you're with. If they feel like, hey, I want what she has or what he has, and I've always sort of coveted that and I want it. And now that I see an opportunity, I'm going to go because I really don't dislike, my family member or my friends. I really don't like them anyway. So I'm going to go after that. And this is an opportunity for myself to get my own needs met. So it's purely selfish intentions, but it's based out of envy or jealousy, right? And also insecurity. Second thing is that they want attention or validation from this person. And again, it kind of goes back into being envious. That person has something, the narcissistic person that you broke up with or that you're no longer with, they have something that that person in your life wants. And that could be, I just want that validation, or I just want to be associated with that person. There have been instances where I've known, um, let's just say I've known women who've broken up with narcissistic men, and maybe they may have female friends or female family members that then try to pursue the abusive or narcissistic man that they broke up with. And they pursue that person in a romantic way. So now that they want to try to obtain that relationship for themselves. And thirdly, what I'll say in terms of supporting narcissist or narcissistic behavior, like attracts like, it's not uncommon for other narcissists to support each other or to endorse bad behavior. So if a person is already narcissistic or toxic to you, they may feel like you've deserved that in some way, but they're also going to feel like, okay, this is something that resonates with me. What this other person did resonates with me, and I actually support and endorse that behavior. So if they're treating you poorly, I'm going to align with them because I can identify with how they're treating people. And to a certain, to a certain extent, they may actually respect that person in a weird way. And I say weird, but it's kind of like, okay, if that person has done more damage, or they've done something very heinous, it's almost kind of like an ooh and ah. So for example, and I'll try to put this in a clearer context for those of you that may not be as familiar with pathology, or you might be a little bit more curious about the pathology. So for example, if I've worked in the past with eating disorder clients, it's way back in the day, early on in my career. It's not something that I do now. but I've worked with eating disorder clients before. And if you, sometimes what happens if you ever do like a group therapy with clients who have eating disorders, what you may find is that they may be in competition with each other. Like, oh, who can, who can deprive themselves from food the longest? Oh, who can go without eating the longest? Who can exercise the hardest? And it can become very competitive in terms of losing weight. And again, that's part of the pathology that goes into that. And the same thing can also be said for narcissistic traits or narcissistic behavior. There can be competition or a one-upsmanship game. It's like, oh, who can one up, or I can align with that person, or I can dig what that person's doing because I can relate to that, if that makes sense. Lastly, what I'll mention about that and, why your family or friends may align with that person that is a narcissist is because abuse culture is normalized within your family. And so, you know, when behavior isn't checked, when abusive behavior isn't put in check, when poor boundaries aren't put in check, when people aren't being called out publicly or made to answer for injustices, um, when those types of things aren't put in check, abuse becomes normalized. It becomes a way of life. It becomes almost like breathing, where people just get way too comfortable and they're like, oh, this is what it is. And when you become comfortable in abuse culture, when abusers become comfortable, they become very entitled. And when they become entitled, the rules of the land do not apply to them. It might apply to everybody else, and they may try to enforce it with everybody else, but the rules of human decency do not apply to them. And so they may feel above the rules. And so they may run amok and do just kind of what they want to do because they feel so entitled. And so it's like, oh, it's not uncommon to hear someone who, if you come from an abusive family and you're with a narcissist, and that person may be inappropriately calling or texting that person or sending inappropriate pictures. Oh, well, I can be friends with whoever I want to be friends with. You can't dictate that, even if it's disrespectful to you. Those would be some of the comments that you're hearing. It's like, if you were to do that to them or do that to anybody else, that would be perceived as disrespect. Why are you sending this person messages? Why are you being inappropriate and sort of developing an allegiance with them? Why are you texting my partner behind my back? And it's because they don't feel like the rules apply to them. They're very entitled. And so what all of this means, I've just given some quick, sort of basic reasons as to why this is happening. But I want you to think about what these things means for you. First of all, if abuse culture is normalized in your family of origin or among your friendships or people that are close to you, that means that your safety is in danger. So anytime you have people that are very comfortable disrespecting you, disrespecting your boundaries, participating in smear campaigns, gossiping behind your back, or talking down about you, your safety, whether that be your emotional safety, your physical safety, or, any number of ways. You have people that are very comfortable saying that they don't like you and expressing that. You are in danger of that. And that is not a person that you would want to surround yourself with. You might want to watch them from a distance to see, if they're going to act out, but you certainly don't want to surround yourself with someone like that. Definitely keep your distance. And that person, again, can't be trusted. If they covet what you have, and so if they're envious, that means that they have a potential and in all likelihood will take the opportunity to sabotage you or anything in your life any chance that they get. And so that's definitely something um, that you want to consider, and that you cannot have boundaries with people like this. They don't respect boundaries. Sure, I've heard of things like gray rock and all this other kind of stuff where you sort of just close yourself off and you don't really do too much in terms of feeding into their personality stuff. And even when Wendy was up here, Wendy talked about how she did couples therapists when one partner is a narcissist. But if you have people that are meaning to do you harm, none of that stuff is going to be effective. Absolutely none of it. And so you want to keep as much distance between yourself and these people as much as possible. Otherwise, again, they will run amok in your life. They're not worried about the consequences. They're not worried about you or what happens to you. And so the sooner that you can realistically look at that and accept that and act accordingly, the better off you will be with that. Also, what this means for you is that the narcissist that you are attempting to leave or break things off with, if these people maintain that connection, this person is always going to be connected to you. So they're going to have tabs on you. They're going to have access to your life. They're going to have access to the people that are around you. They're going to have access to intimate details, things that you don't want them to know. So this is another way that they stay in your life and still have control, because you have people that are feeding into them. They're still getting that attention, and any attention, including from people that are related to you, again, in a narcissist mind, can be interpreted, and often is interpreted as, this person still wants to maintain a connection with me. They don't want to end things with me. So although they may be telling me that, if I still maintain a connection with them indirectly, this person still wants me to be a part of their life. And that's how that thinking goes. And so whenever you're dealing with a narcissist or someone that has pathology like narcissistic traits, you don't want to give them an inch. Otherwise, they will really take a mile, and their thinking can be very distorted, and they're going to rework it in their mind somehow to make it fit the narrative, like, oh, they want me, or they're giving me some attention, I am special, they're never going to be done with me, and I still have access to that person, and use it as a means to still try to maintain control of you and your life as much as possible. So in addition to keeping your distance, and within the keeping your distance, I should say that I'm very pro going no contact. I think that's the best solution. But if you do maintain low contact, calling out poor behavior is another way to go, if you can do so in a way that maintains your safety. So bringing attention to behavior that is poor and disrespectful, and again, attempting to implement boundaries. And I say attempting because, again, although you may try to set a boundary or put a boundary there, trust and believe, dysfunctional people can blow through boundaries just like they were, your boundaries, just like they are a green light. So that's, they don't really respect that as much as they should. So you can attempt to implement boundaries there, but just know that those are risk that you take anytime you keep that person in your life. And by boundaries, that would be something like not letting them have access to any information about you, not allowing them to have any access to anything about your life, keeping any conversations that you do have very superficial, and light, or, maybe not even allowing them to have a direct phone number, direct home address, or things like that. Any sort of significant identifying information about you and about your life or people that are closest to you. And what I'll also mention, lastly, as I wrap this up, is making sure you get yourself some support away from your family, people that are not connected to the narcissist in your life or your dysfunctional family. So just making sure that you're getting some very consistent emotional support, so that you don't feel like you're going through things alone and that you're not being attacked from all sides, because it can be a very disheartening and devastating and potentially dangerous situation for you. So making sure you have that support and that you're taking care of yourself mentally and emotionally. I hope that this has been helpful. I'm going to conclude this session here, but I do want to let you guys know I do have some sessions, podcast sessions that are coming up, strictly for the month of February. So that's going to be the month of love, love with a narcissist. And also, I'm going to be talking about the men soon. So, I've done a lot of podcasts that have been very focused on women and their experiences. And I definitely want to talk about men and their experiences also, because I think there's a lot of things that I want to touch on. And male narcissists look different than female narcissists in a lot of cases. So that'll give give me a chance to explain different perspectives there. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope that you are all doing well out there. So until next time, take care of yourselves and be well. Bye bye.